In the United States, U.S. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is preparing to unveil this week a plan that would suspend the nation's debt ceiling for a year in return for spending concessions from the other side of the aisle. The proposal, which would be an opening marker for negotiations with the White House and congressional Democrats, calls for a vote in the House in late May to suspend the debt ceiling until about May 2024. This would allow Republicans to seek another round of concessions next year in the stretch run of a presidential and congressional election year. Big year coming up in the United States in 2024. For more on these headlines, we cross over to London, where we're joined by Arise business analyst Bode Ososanmi. Good morning, Bode. Thanks for joining us. What do you make of this development in the House with Kevin McCarthy? Right?
Well, I understand there's going to be a speech later today, and so we'll exactly maybe be clear on what is being proposed. But clearly, the government has been forced to use special measures to just be able to keep government running. But already they have reached the limit, $31.4 trillion, and all the accounting tricks will soon run out. So they definitely have to get some kind of decision or extension. But analysts, of course, see that the debt ceiling will get resolved. It always does. But the turmoil involved in the process will hurt a fragile recovery. But first, some context, just to help some understand what really is involved. The debt ceiling was first put in place by Congress in World War I to give authorization for the Treasury to borrow money up to a certain amount. Lifting the limit used to be routine, but in recent years, the debate has turned out particularly toxic, and it currently stands at 31.4 trillion. It was last raised in 2021, and government typically runs, especially in the US, runs a deficit almost every year. And to pay for it, they have to borrow extensively. The US debt to GDP ratio now is about 150%, behind Italy and Japan's 250%. Italy is 175%. There are three categories of spending. First, you have mandatory spending, which is about 60%. The largest of which is Social Security and Medicare. Mandatory spending is not subject to yearly approval of this nature, so that is not really an issue. But you also have discretionary spending, of which defense is the highest amount. And typically, this is where you get a lot of debates. Most of it, like I said, nearly half of it is defense. And what the Republicans are proposing is to reduce non-defense discretionary spending, try and cap that, essentially no growth and maybe just minimal growth year on year. But three things could happen if there is no agreement. One, we saw in 2011 when the U.S. was close to a default and ratings agencies downgraded U.S. from AAA credit rating to AA+. There was, of course, a lot of chaos then, and it sent the markets into free fall. But if we do actually get a default, not just the threat of a default, things obviously get much worse. There is a further downgrade. Government workers and Social Security recipients are not paid. Of course, also, that's going to impact the economy. Access to credit is going to be impacted. And of course, thirdly, the status of the US dollar as a reserve currency and the attractiveness of US Treasury bonds as a safe haven, all of this would be endangered and challenged. The value of the dollar will plunge. So let's see how it's resolved. We understand the Republicans are also proposing to introduce some new approach, linking the ceiling to GDP and so on. Meanwhile, Biden has insisted that this should move forward without any conditions, calling on the GOP to authorize the extension and avoid unnecessary economic pain. But we'll see how it's resolved. We'll just hear what McCarthy has to say later today.
All right, Sok, energy, as far as Germany phasing out nuclear and coal, as far as that plan is concerned, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, supporters of this shutdown of the nuclear plant say that it will accelerate achievement of goals to close the last coal-fired power station not later than 2038. So they think they're aiming at 80% of electricity to come from renewables. But of course, this is happening when Finland is just opening their own nuclear station. The UK, in the last Chancellor's statement, said they were embracing nuclear energy as a green alternative, or let's say a path to a fully green alternative. Not quite clear, but the situation is obviously very different. I think the issue is that in Germany you have a Green Party that obviously is very strong in terms of its influence and the antipathy to nuclear, the nuclear energy in the mix. But we will see, as you know, in a place like France, they rely on nuclear energy. 70% of the energy comes from nuclear. So many are saying that Germany is putting their economy at risk, but we'll have to wait and see how this is resolved.
All right, Arise business analyst Bode Ososanmi, thanks so much for taking us through the headlines. We appreciate your insights as always.